We're going to talk about free speech. I'm going to invite in Inaya Folarin Iman, who is the director of something called the Free Speech Union. It is relatively new. Let me just show you the story in The Times yesterday. It has Free Speech Union fights Twitter witch hunts, with its General Secretary Toby Young there in the picture. Inaya, thank you for coming in. Why do we need a free speech union? What's the problem you're trying to solve?
I think first and foremost, it's really important to remember that free speech is a fundamental right for all people. It is the fundamental bedrock of our society, and without free speech, we are not able to explore new ideas, to challenge each other and to understand each other. And what we have seen, particularly in the last kind of 5 to 10 years, is a kind of permissive acceptance of a kind of culture that increasingly creates boundaries for people to discuss quite contentious ideas. And we've seen it in the universities. Many people thought originally it was kind of zealous students, but we've seen it far more than that in academia, in policing, in the media, and it is increasingly stifling our ability to have conversations about really important issues. And this is an organisation that really wants to fight back against that. The Free Speech Union is a mass membership, non-partisan organisation which will be defending people who are at risk of basically having their free speech stifled.
Have you got any examples specifically that you can give us where people might need the Free Speech Union to defend them?
Well, for example, a prominent feminist academic, Kathleen Stock, at the moment is having to have security guards to be able to do her job at universities. We've even seen, for example, this recent kind of really blown-up case about Lawrence Fox and some of the things that he said. And in the last 48 hours, he said that now he is coming off social media due to the fact that he's been consistently mobbed. That is totally unacceptable. And there's a range of things that we will do. For example, on the kind of smaller end, if somebody is being mobbed on social media, which actually has quite significant psychological effects, we will come to their defence. That's really significant because just having the support there, knowing that you're not alone, can actually really be positive for people. But on the other end, we can look at kind of Harry Miller, who was recorded as having a non-crime hate incident and took police to court and won. And so we will help him potentially crowdfund for his legal fees, put people in touch with lawyers that may be able to help them. So there's a range of things that can be done.
Are you going to join up this union, Helena?
I'm not going to join up this union because I think that it's there already. I believe in freedom of speech. It's a fundamental right. It's fundamental to democracy. And I am unhappy with the way in which social networks allow for abuse in ways that I think is horrifying. However, I do think that some of the people that will join your organisation will be racists who will be really wanting to use this as a cover in order to be abusive in racist ways. You will also have people... Sorry, let me finish. Yeah. You will also have people who hate homosexuals, who hate trans people. You will also have lots of people who will come on who have hostile views towards Islam. So I suspect that you will get an awful lot of very ugly views being expressed. And while I think there should be freedom of speech, it doesn't mean freedom to be abusive. And that's the difference.
OK, so none of us have ever said that it's freedom to be abusive. And I absolutely would recommend people to be responsible on social media. But this is the kind of danger that we have, is any time we have a conversation about something so fundamental like free speech, it's constantly framed in relation to hate. And that kind of distorts the kind of narrative around it when it's actually so crucial and so important. And it's not just racists and fascists that are being targeted. As I've just given examples, Kathleen Stock, Peter Tatchell, a gay rights campaigner, has been replatformed.
Women who are sceptical of gender fluidity, routinely labelled TERFs. A tutor at my old Oxford College, Selina Todd, now has to attend lectures with 2 bodyguards accompanying her. You know, it goes both ways. But the problem with cancel culture is that it very often it's often very much driven by the left, and it applies unequally to people who are on the right, expressing what are often quite anodyne views and are still being hounded out of public life as a result.
OK, but what about the case of Andrew Sabisky, the number 10 advisor who left or was asked to leave? There's a picture of him there after some historic social media posts resurfaced. I mean, I can read a couple of them. It was suggested that compulsory contraception could be used to stop a permanent underclass. Women's sport is more comparable to the Paralympics than it is to men's. The mean black American IQ, I slightly paraphrase, based on a century's worth of data, is lower than a mean white American IQ. Is that defensible?
So, First and foremost, obviously, we'll have to look at all of these things from a case-by-case basis. But I think that this particular issue about Sabisky is more complicated than just labelling it as a free speech issue. For example, there's legitimate arguments to be had about whether the government did their due diligence and kind of the vetting process.
Would you have let him join? Hang on. Would you have let him join the union?
Well, so once he was hired, we don't necessarily think that he should just be kind of hung out to dry and completely ostracised and vilified off social media. We have no idea what's happened to that person.
Do you mind if I just
so
ask
for example,
you?
one second. So I think that for an individual like Sabisky, we would be calling for there to be some kind of, due process instead of just hanging that person out to dry. That has really chilling consequences.
Hold on a minute.
Well, I'm just going to let Alva come in, and then I'll come to you. Go on.
So I'm just curious. So you were saying, I'm curious about how this will work in practice. So the idea is you've cited these examples of people who are targeted by Twitter mobs and so on for
Not
certain.
just Twitter mobs. I've also talked about Harry Miller.
For example,
Well, hang on. Let Alva finish.
So for example,
it has consequences.
Hang on, because no one can hear. Let Alva make her point.
Exercise my right to free speech. As you were saying, basically, when someone is targeted by a mob of some sort, or when they come under attack for expressing certain views, the Free Speech Union promises to mobilise an army to defend them. I'm curious as to what that means and what good it will do.
So if we look at, for example, Alistair Stewart, who resigned because of something that he said on social media, what we actually saw was many journalists, many people and his friends coming out in support of him, and that actually, did a lot of positive things for his character and reputation. Actually, what we find on social media, it becomes all-consuming, and so someone's reputation is dragged through the mud, and people are scared to defend them. It ends up being self-censorship.
So
actually, an organisation. I'm answering your question. So actually, having an organisation full of many significant and prominent people coming out in support of you.
All right, but let Alva respond.
And is this just a sort of way to get Toby Young onto the Today programme and onto various programmes to defend people who've said controversial opinions online?
Toby Young isn't here. I'm here speaking.
But is that the sort of plan? I don't really understand how this will improve people's right to free speech if really, when there's an angry Twitter mob that's all incensed about certain views, you're going to mobilise another one.
I've just given you an example, but Toby Young is not the only person in that organisation.
I'm not really trying to understand.
But is there a line? Is there a limit to free speech?
Well, let's just look. Free speech is fundamental because it is out of discourse and debate that we develop our ideas as a society going forward. But we also have to treat each other with respect, and the way in which debates are being conducted now is often disrespectful. Now, the point about, for example, the guy who was employed in Downing Street saying all these rather offensive things is that, of course, he should be entitled to say it, but not as somebody who's in a prominent position in Downing Street and associated with our leadership of this country. That's what's wrong. Toby Young complained in the newspaper article that he wrote on Sunday, saying that we have to set up this new organisation. He was unable to take up a position in the regulatory educational regulatory authority that was being created, because complaints were made about things that he'd put on his Twitter account. The things he put on his Twitter account were disgusting, and they were offensive, and not only offensive because sometimes views will offend people, but he actually degraded and humiliated a woman, suggesting sexual things about her. All right. Padma Lakshmi was humiliated by what he did, and he did not deserve to have a public
In the final few seconds, Inaya.
At the end of the day, Toby has founded many free schools. He has significant educational experience. Just some tweets that he actually apologised for and deleted mean he should be completely excluded from public life. This is the example that we're saying. It's unforgivable. It's unforgivable.
I think this conversation is going to continue while we go off air, but from all of us here, bye-bye.